Baby, come give me something, oh.
Alright, this is my last video of the day, then I need to get to work. If you're in the state of California, there's a 3-year statute of limitations for wage and hour issues. So go to this website, the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement, or the DLSC for short, and file a complaint for not receiving your paycheck. I just wrapped up a phone call. For 2.5 hours, me and this person were discussing how her boss was terrorizing all the employees in her office. She always said no. She always said stop. And then he fired her. Let's get after it. In my last video, I said if you're getting sexually harassed, you need to report it to HR. Now, this question says, what if you're in HR? If you're in HR, you need to report it to the manager of HR or the head of HR. If that's the person who's doing it, you need to report that act to an executive. But always document, always email. The Supreme Court of the United States of America has just ruled on Bostock versus Clayton County, Georgia. The Supreme Court ruled that federal workers cannot be discriminated against based on their sexual orientation or if they're transgender. The court's opinion on this case is 33 pages long. The dissent on this case is over 130 pages long. 2 of the 3 plaintiffs in this case are now deceased, which means they don't get to see their justice. But let me give you an example of what this really means. Say there's a gentleman in your office and he's in a relationship with another gentleman in your office. Now say that there is a woman in your office and has relations with another gentleman in your office. Before the Supreme Court ruled on this case, the 2 men in relationships with each other could get fired. The woman and the man wouldn't be. So one thing that came up today was filing for an extension with the EDD. I have a client who just received a notice of UI claim. So typically when you receive those notices, you have 10 days to respond to it. That's a pretty strict deadline too, but you're able to extend those deadlines if you can show good cause. So the situation here was the EDD sent my client this notice, but they sent it to their old address. Now, we updated this address with the EDD a year ago, but they still sent the claim notice over to the old address. My client doesn't pay attention to that address. I don't even think that they stopped by there at all. But thankfully, someone who was at that address then forwarded all of my client's mail. So I received the letter. I responded to it, but it was a few weeks after the due date, after the deadline. So if you're an administrative law judge and someone says, I did not receive the notice and I did not file it timely because the notice was not sent to the correct address, what would you do? A lot of cities are going under curfews now. So this is for all the employees who are scheduled to work and who got told to go home. You're still entitled to get paid for your show up time. So for example, if you're scheduled for 8 hours and then they tell you to go home after you work 2, they still need to pay you for 2 more hours for this shift. So make sure you let your manager know. Stay safe and make sure you keep your face covered. Are my unemployment benefits taxable? Yes, in California they are taxed as ordinary wages. You should receive a W-2 at the end of the year. Make sure you save enough money to pay those taxes. The last thing anyone needs right now is another surprise. So stay prepared, stay diligent. How do you get your unemployment benefits to stop? If you've been on unemployment in California and you just start returning back to your job, you're going to start earning an income again. And because you have your normal income back, you're not going to be entitled to unemployment benefits. So one question is, how do you get them to stop? It's tough to contact the EDD because they are so busy and their phone lines are always full. But what you can do is when you're certifying for your weekly income, you get to certify that you did receive a job offer and you did receive income from that job. And then there's a place where you could fill out the form of what company that you're receiving income from and how much money you've earned. So you still certify for benefits, but you're entering different numbers in because you're earning income. If you do that enough weeks, then your unemployment insurance claim will close because you've been earning a lot of income over the past few weeks. If the EDD still sends you money, then you need to hold on to that, make sure you don't spend it because they're going to ask for it back eventually. And trust me, they will ask for it back. Congratulations, you have your job back. If your employer is requiring you to take a COVID-19 test before you go to work, then your employer needs to pay for that test. Now, if your employer is requiring you to go to a different facility or a different clinic to get tested, not only does your employer need to pay for that test, but they need to pay for the time it takes you to take that test. So for example, if it's on your day off, then they need to pay for your travel time to and from the clinic as well as the time you spend in that clinic. So make sure you document the time that you spend, email that to your manager and HR immediately, and let them know that you took your test, just as they asked. If your employer refuses to pay or reimburse you for your time spent getting that COVID-19 test, then they are in violation of Labor Code Section 2802. So send the HR department an email saying I need to be reimbursed for this expense that you're requiring me to take, and then wait. You know, sometimes if you do that, they will terminate you, but I believe that's a wrongful termination. Here's a good question that came in today. You hear sometimes that lawyers get contingency fees for the cases that they take on. What that means is that they will receive a percentage of whatever their client wins. You know, realistically, it's just a different business model that people take. Some people charge hourly, some people charge on a contingency fee basis. But there's a couple situations where it is illegal to take contingency fees. One of them is criminal law cases, because what's there to win? Another one is for unemployment insurance benefits. So if you file a claim with the EDD, your employer denies it, so then you have to go up to appeal, and then you appeal it to the CUIAB. That's an administrative hearing. That's an appeal. So you could have an attorney there. The employer has to charge you hourly because they cannot take a contingency on your unemployment insurance. Those are your rights. Those are your benefits. So if you hear about any lawyers who are charging contingency fees on the unemployment insurance benefits that employees receive, that's illegal.